Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from AlexMercedCoder.com, and welcome to another lesson here in on JavaScript. Usually, in most programming languages, the working with variables and data is a little bit more complicated. You actually have to kind of tell it what type of data. You have to have the same type of data in data structures. Everything has to be much more explicitly defined. Um, which has its pros and cons. So languages that generally you have to kind of do all that extra work. The benefit of doing so is that when that code is run, the computer is able to make better use of memory because it's not guessing how much memory you need. While, but it's harder to program. Okay, it's definitely if you're doing something like Go, C++, where you have to kind of be much more explicit about the size of different data things. Part of the programming because you're thinking about all these extra steps. In JavaScript, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, basically, it'll figure out, is it a number, is it a string, what kind of variable is it, and it'll just kind of work. JavaScript will figure it out for you, which is why sometimes you'll hear people complain that JavaScript is slow if you want to run like a 3D game. Okay, like you're not going to run, Half-Life or a modern equivalent in through JavaScript code because it's not necessarily managing memory as well for those more high processing intensive. But for a website and for most web applications, JavaScript is pretty powerful. And for the kind of things you're doing in JavaScript, most modern computers can handle it just fine. But just so you can understand why that matters and why that's different between languages, and understand why something called WebAssembly may be a very important development in the future. So if you haven't seen my other videos or listened to my podcast, Web Development 101, where I talk about WebAssembly, it's an interesting lesson. So the reason is I wanted to kind of get into all that is because today I'm going to talk about arrays. Now, arrays are just basically ways of holding buckets of data. So like lots of different. So let's say I'm going to keep track of a bunch of people's names. I can say let names, and I can even make it const. So I'm going to make it const. It's always a good habit also, as much as, again, while I said before, keep your variables local, same thing as keep as many of your variables const as possible. If you know you're never going to change the variable, declare it a constant. It's just one less thing you have to worry about being sort of changing and creating bugs in your code. So we can say const names equals, and then arrays always these curly brackets. So we'll say, and then again, I'm going to do names, so they're strings, so I got to put them in quotes. So Alex, Bob, Steve. Oh, Steve. See what happens if I don't put the quotes. So if I just put the Alex without the quotation marks, it's going to look for a variable named Alex, not the sequence of letters Alex. You always got to be very careful about that. So here what I did is I created an array. So essentially this array called names has 3 pieces of data in it, Alex, Bob, and Steve. Now if I wanted to actually print the names, basically I can console.log. And the way arrays work, so I'll type in the name of the array, put in the square brackets, and we start with 0. So 0 is technically Alex. It's the first item in the array. So if I wanted to type suit, I can control, I'm gonna copy and paste that. So here I'm printing all 3 items in the array. So 0, 1, and 2. And I could even print the whole array as one statement by just not having the curly braces. So then I hit save. Let's refresh. Okay, Alex, Bob, and Steve. Nice. That is very cool. Okay, so see, Alex, Bob, and Steve gets printed individually, and then when I print the array, it prints all 3, and then I can break down the array by pushing down. And the thing is, again, it doesn't just have to be a string. In your array, you could have functions, which again, we haven't talked about functions. You can have objects. We haven't talked about objects yet. And you can have numbers. So arrays give you a lot of flexibility, or data types in JavaScript in general give you a lot of flexibility. Generally, everything you can't do in other programming languages, you can do in JavaScript, which makes for a lot of fun. Cool. Now, other cool things you can do with the array is you can add and take stuff off. Okay, so there's a bunch of different array methods. Now, a method, so a function, so I might as well introduce a function now real quick. A function is a command that tells to do something. Basically, instead of me typing out the same, let's say there's something I do a lot. Instead of me, like let's say I wanted to print out the different um, items in the array many times. What I could do is I could turn it into a function. So the way I would do that is I would type in const. You generally should always declare your functions as a const. Everything's a const. Okay, const a func. Then you're gonna type in equals, then parentheses, and we'll come back to another time where we'll talk about what's in the parentheses. And we'll type in, and then you type in a arrow, and then you do a curly bracket, and you're gonna wrap that code in a curly bracket. So what this does, it creates this code and wraps it in this name, a func. So every time I call a func, it creates that code. That's a function. So basically, a func parentheses. Now let's say I wanted to do that 3 times. I wanted to print that same code 3 times. I don't have to type it over and over again. So there I have it 3 times. I hit refresh. See, now I have it 3 times because this a func function called it 3 times. So now objects like console, and I mentioned the document in the first lesson, they have their own methods. So console log is a method of console. What a method is a function that an object has. So different things in JavaScript will have methods. An array is a kind of object. Okay, this is what's referred to as object-oriented programming. Everything's an object, and every object can do things. And the things that an object can do are methods. So I have this array called names. Now, if I wanted to add something to names, I would do push. So I can push the name Joe. Okay. And then we'll just call, and actually what I'll do is I'll print the second 2a funcs right after that. Cool. Let's see what happens. So now watch what happened. So all 3 times only console logs the first 3 names because that's what the function says, 0, 1, 2. But when a console logs the full array, the second time you see the name Joe and Joe added to it. Now this is kind of weird because didn't I declare names as a const? Now this kind of gets at what's going on under the hood. Technically, really what's going on is when I declare the names array, what's going on under the hood is that the variable is actually a sort of pointer, which means a address in your computer's memory. So it's just saying that this address is your array. So I can change the array that's at that address, but I wouldn't be able to do I can't do names equals and then do a whole new array, because then I'm kind of telling it to say, hey, point to a different array, and that it's a const, and it won't want to do that unless I declared it using let. But when I do push, I'm not changing the memory address where that array is at. I'm just adding to the existing array. So I haven't changed the constant, which is the memory address. That's why things like arrays and objects and functions can be declared as const and still be manipulated in a lot of ways. So just to kind of understand why when I have a variable, I can never reassign it, but I can do all this wacky stuff with arrays and objects, even though I declare them as const. So just a little context there, because that definitely took me a while to appreciate. But what if I want to take a name off? Okay, I can just do names.pop. Okay, which pops the last name, so it's going to take Joe back off the list. Okay, and I don't have to put anything in the parentheses. I just hit save. I'll just pop whatever the last name is. So then I go here and see now Joe's gone on that last call because I popped Joe back off the array. Now, what if I want to get rid of the first name in the list? Okay, well then I can do names.shift. It's either shift or unshift. We'll find out in a moment. A func. And then again, whenever you're calling a function, you have to put those parentheses there. The reason is if you call a function and you don't put the parentheses there, then JavaScript thinks you're calling the variable pointer to the function. Basically, you're saying, hey, I want to know what this function is, not, oh, run this function. So I save that. Okay, and then we had a problem, names dot, oh, I typed in shirt, not shift. So let's save that. And there we go. So in this case, Alex got removed. Okay. Let's see here. One thing that's odd is that this came out undefined for item number 2. Oh, I see, because it's printing out, okay, so this is the last call. So in that very final call, Bob and Steve are the only thing left in the array. So when it tries to print out item number 3, it can't because there is no item number 3. I removed it. Okay, so that's essentially what array is. I can put in any kind of data in there. But I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll talk about other types of data structures.